Good morning, folks. I'm going to encourage all of you to take a seat, and we can begin our 11 o'clock session here this morning. And welcome. Today we'll be talking about training and motivating future entrepreneurs. So it's pretty exciting. I'm Ezekiel Onias. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship over at California State University, San Bernardino. And I've been doing entrepreneurship for many years. I'm kind of a lifelong entrepreneur, so I'm excited to have a great panel here of fellow entrepreneurs, and a topic that's really close to my heart is really empowering the youth, right, in terms of entrepreneurial thinking and doing all that good stuff. So our first speaker is Clinton. Clinton is a entrepreneurship adjunct professor and former serial entrepreneur, and he's AACSB Pro qualified, started an entrepreneurship program over at State College of Florida, wrote an entrepreneurship quick study guide, and he edits a current entrepreneurship blog at clintoneday.com. And I love this. His life legacy is to empower as many as possible with the freedom of self-employment. Clinton, let's give him a nice warm welcome.
As long as we're speaking about writing the entrepreneurship quick study guide, I have an example here. And if this is not in your college bookstore, please take one home, and there's an IBNS code on the back they can order. And every college bookstore has a relationship with bar charts. And you then will have this in your library. And I actually have a friend in the audience who based a course around the chart.
Yeah, you got 2 or 3 of those. And that was easier to carry than a textbook, and more economical, and had more information, better information. So it was great.
I ought to drop the
My students loved it.
So why am I talking about motivation? I was an entrepreneur in insurance agency business, and when I started teaching entrepreneurship, I was doing it so long ago, I had the business plan to start with. And about the second year, I discovered Steve Blank and lean entrepreneurship. How many of you are familiar with lean? Well, half of you anyway. Basically, evidence-based entrepreneurship, where you go to the end user and you make them a friend and you question them about what their needs are, a day in their life, and try and satisfy their need or problem with a product or service. And so lean startup, if you really do it right and you use the customer development phase of Steve Blank's theory, you can't fail. You just have to persist. And if you persist, you will succeed. So the secret then becomes, how do you motivate your students to persist if you've got a winning formula? And that was the mystery that I really set off to try and solve. And fortunately, my wife is in a graduate program and had a course available in motivation at her university, so I kind of pushed her and bought a second textbook. And so there's basically 2 ways. So, what entrepreneurship does is it actually combines the ingredients of motivation. So we're really in a great position to motivate our students and recruit students from across the whole campus. And especially it provides the opportunities for self-expression and realization of one's passion. That's the secret to motivation. It's Maslow's theory of hierarchy. As you get up near the top of the pyramid, people want to be self-satisfied. Self-actualization is expressing yourself and reaching fulfillment in your passion, in your everyday life, but particularly in your career. So entrepreneurs set up to do that, and the Bible is by Daniel Pink, called Drive. This was the bestseller about 3 or 4 years ago, and I can't encourage you enough to get it, because he summarizes the whole theory behind modern motivation, which is intrinsic as opposed to extrinsic motivation. And I'm just going to play a little clip here to set the stage.
Children possess that natural inner drive. They're self-motivated, dedicated, and urge for novelties. But wait, what happened during the course of someone's life that makes them lose all that motivation? Hi, the Lonely Buccaneer here. In this video, we're discussing the evolution of motivation and how to create a motivating work environment. Ideas inspired by the book Drive by Daniel Pink. In our society, we're always confronted with the ideas that if you want people to perform better, you give them a bigger reward. However, science has proven over and over again that only simple and straightforward tasks, higher incentive, leads to higher performance. But when a task requires even rudimentary cognitive skills such as conceptual and creative thinking, reward leads to poor performance. So why do business still rely on this kind of reward system? If it destroys motivation, diminish performance, crush creativity, crowd out good behavior, and encourage shortcut or short-term thinking. Okay, to understand that, we must go back a few centuries, when people began to converge to the cities and when there were growing needs for a workforce. Since at that time, tasks were mostly straightforward, like the Ford linear production chain, relying on extrinsic motivation by rewarding people for desired behavior and punishing them for undesirable one seems like the logical outcome to increase productivity. By harnessing the power of the stick and the carrot, it has enabled mankind to leap forward, going through industrial revolution and make many technological development. And that's why most companies are still rooted with the thinking that when it comes to motivating their employee, the only important factor is to use reward or sanction. This type of thinking takes for granted that the employee have no enthusiasm for their job and will try to do less as possible if no one gives them direction, which is often not the case. So, how do we create a motivating work environment? Creating motivation for a routine task is often more simple than we think. We can start by acknowledging that the task is boring, explaining why it's important, and let people choose the way they want to accomplish it. The point here is to think autonomy and not control. However, when the task is mostly creative and conceptual, the approach has to be a bit different. And of course, an adequate remuneration is required to take the money issue off the table. And when money is off the table, we want to create an environment that encourages autonomy, mastery, and purpose. People are more inner-driven than we think. I believe that creating the right environment will allow us to awaken that inner child in each of us as we seek enjoyment, achievement, and personal growth. Seeing human as resource is so outdated. And that's why I believe that we should encourage people to be self-directed by creating an environment that pushes people to choose what they do and how they do it, when they do it, and with whom they do it with. I can't help but think about the time that I was paddling with a club of over 100 people. We had no formal structure except for a coach, and all the boat rentals, competition we attend, and objectives were fixed by a few delegated teammates. These people were not managers, they were friends that we trusted to take decisions and represent us. They were there because they wanted to assist and watch over the well-being of the club. That's what I think really made a huge difference in our team, as everybody felt that each decision as their own. It was also very amazing to see people pushing each other to lose weight, beat their own time, and have fun. Now imagine every office job, not just Google or Amazon, offers the kind of work environment where people feel in control, strive for mastery, and work for a purpose. Let's recap. Using the stick and the carrot is outdated. It's time that we work on creating the new generation of work environment, an environment that we focus on autonomy and not control. By letting people choose their task, their time, their teammates, and their way, a place that encourages inner-driven people to accomplish their best work. The verdict. This book has taught me a lot about myself and my inner drive. Also, the second section provides an excellent toolkit to assess personal motivation. So for more insight, check out the book. As always, if you like the video, please subscribe and share for more.
So what the carrot and stick is no longer the way to motivate, and it's particularly in academia. And if you have an entrepreneurship program now, you're probably using the experiential exercise method, which means you put them on a project and they learn by doing. And in that fashion, you're actually using the way to motivate people the best. So if you can somehow give them self-expression and let them work on a passion, you've got the ticket to a successful startup and a happy classroom. And you actually have the ticket to recruitment, to getting students across the campus to come take your course when word gets out that it's a lot of fun and they can really enjoy themselves, find their fulfillment. So where does this fundamental human need for autonomy and self-determination come from? You've probably all heard in college courses of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And up at the top, you see the self-actualization, which is essentially this, self-expression and fulfillment. And then the one at the very top called transcendence, which is the ultimate. And that's where we get into achieving flow. If you've heard of this concept of flow, I can't pronounce the guy's name, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he was a psychologist of a lot of respect and renown who developed the theory of flow. And essentially, you reach a state where you're unconscious of time, you're totally involved in your work, and you're enjoying every day, every moment, and you're in a state of flow. That's transcendence. And you can get, if you can achieve something close to that in your classroom, you're motivating your classes and your students. They're going to learn a lot. They're going to be successful. So just for the heck of it, and before I finish this subject, I went to ChatGPT to ask them how to motivate students. And I thought you'd be interested in what they said. Foster a culture of persistence, setbacks or opportunities, supportive environment, provide regular feedback, constructive, help the students overcome their obstacles and stay engaged. And the importance of goal setting, which again is associated with the carrot and stick, but you still have goals. Mentoring and networking, keeping them autonomous, but helping them out a little bit. And then celebrating the milestones, you know. Reward them with something, which I'm going to do here, to the best questions. Do we have the questions at the end?
Yes, questions are at the end.
At the best questions on my subject at the end, get a free entrepreneurship quick study guide. Thank you very much.
I love this. Thank you, Clinton. So this was fascinating to hear a little bit about the sort of autonomy and how to create that sort of environment to unlock passion with our with students in the classroom. So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ian. The Director of Curriculum at Innovate at Boston University, where he oversees innovation and the entrepreneurship minor. He's previously served as the interim director for Innovate and the inaugural manager and director. And its physical home, the Build Lab, IDG, the Capital Student Innovation Center. So he's also a master lecturer at the Boston University, where he teaches entrepreneurship, and that's after having a long, successful career in venture capital and entrepreneurship. He's so wealthy that he's promised to buy us all dinner at the nearest steakhouse after this.
Ian.
I'm just kidding. Ian, well, let's give him a nice warm welcome. Ian.
Most interesting introduction I've had. So hello everybody. So Ian Masheter, teaching at BU and running the Entrepreneurship Center for the last 12 years now. So when I got there and we were teaching entrepreneurship classes, I was really not happy with the way that we were teaching revenue projections, revenue modeling, and everybody's now like, bored already. No, it's not boring. Does anybody have the same problem? Right? I felt like we were teaching, maybe pro forma financials. You should do an income statement. You should do a balance sheet. And I realized this really had nothing to do with entrepreneurship, right? Nothing to do with really building a revenue model. So I searched around for a bit. I'm thinking there must be a revenue model out there that I could use, right? There must be something. So I had to search around, and I actually found one from a venture capitalist who was so sick of entrepreneurial teams coming to him for funding without a decent revenue model that he said, I'm going to have to do this myself. So he did it himself, but he charged for his model. So for the first class or two, I paid for the model and we used it. But it was very, very heavy, a little cumbersome, and of course I didn't like paying for it. Myself and a few MBA students, we designed our own. And we've been using this now for several years. And I also make it available in the Boston ecosystem as well, so entrepreneurs in Boston are using it. And my objective today is, or when I'm in class, I want them to understand the importance of a model. So I think it's an issue with entrepreneurs, right? It's not just student entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in the community, like, they don't want to touch the finances. right? I'm the creative person, I'm the product person, I don't want to touch finances. And I keep telling CEOs, or people, the founders, you have to understand them. It's your business, you can't delegate it to your uncle. My uncle's an accountant, he's going to do the financial projections for me. That's not acceptable, you have to understand them yourself. So this is what we do, and this allows them to also build a revenue model from the bottoms up rather than top down, right? So top down doesn't work, investors hate it, and only bottoms up works. So we're in this part of the business model canvas, down in the revenue streams, and revenue models. We want to give them a model so that they can change it, right? Because the first model is obviously wrong. The second model is obviously wrong. The third, onwards, they have to keep iterating. So anyway, there's always humor around revenue models, right? All right. What I say to the students is, this is your model where you can develop potential opportunities and threat scenarios. Like you say that you're going to you've got a 90% renewal rate on your subscription contract. What if it's 75%? Show me, what does it look like with 75%? I want them a model where they can just replace 90 with 75 and show the effect on the model. You're all welcome to the model. And I'll use the revenues from it to pay for dinner. No, there's no charge for the model. We get to this Dropbox folder. There's 3 files in there. There's a guide that we wrote to make it easier. An example, which is what I'm going to use now, and then the actual model itself. So we're going to try and download the... Oh, so do not run it from within Dropbox. So it's an Excel file, so actually download it and open it in Excel. Oh, so far so good on the tech, right? All right, I don't have time to obviously go through the model, in as much detail as I normally do in class, obviously, but green tabs along here are input tabs, and the red tabs are output tabs. So let's just very, very high level go through it. So essentially it allows you to map costs and revenues. So these bubbles are just things I put in the model to hopefully make it, in the example they're not in the model itself. So essentially you put in the sell price of the product, you can put in, do you expect it to change over time? I really see it, okay. 5 minutes, thank you. You can model changes over time if you want. You can do things like if you're selling on the App Store and Apple's taking 30% of every dollar you make, you can put in a revenue. You can share the revenue with Apple if that's what you want to do. Oh, thank you. And then the cost of goods sold here. So we're selling this product for $999. We're building it for $333. You can put down a reduction of price over time. What I say to my students is just start by leaving most of this blank, right? You don't have to. You can put down what you think it might decline over years in a few weeks. At the beginning, let's just get the basic data. How much does it cost you to make, and how much do you think you're going to sell it for? And then here are, this is what we expect this is the number of units we expect to sell in this box. And so that's product number one finished from a revenue perspective. And what the model allows you to do is to create other products. So it's not just a one product model. So in my example here, I decided I was going to build this product, but after 3 years, I was going to replace it with a creatively named Mark II product. And you just go through the same thing, and then you do the same. So that's for the direct, the one time is, you know, I build a product, I sell a product, a one-time transaction. If you've got more of a subscription model, which obviously a lot of the students now have subscription models, you would use this tab 2. The comments field was something we added recently so that students can put down their assumptions, so that other team members can see why they put something down, or they can remind themselves why they put something down. And subscription basically follows the same kind of idea as the direct one. So I'm going to skip over that because they're virtually the same, but it counts for one-time revenue or subscription revenue. Then you put in expenses. Is your advertising and marketing expenses, any other R&D expenses, are you in a building, are you hiring accountants, whatever. I'm just going to skip over there. Here's where you put the money into the business, because as I keep telling my students, negative cash is not a thing. There's no place in the universe where negative cash actually exists. So you've got to have positive cash, and so we can do it through putting money in through grants or equity investment. And then obviously you're all thinking, well, majority of the money is going to be on salaries, right? In most startups, most of the money is salaries. And here's where you put salaries. There's 3 columns: sales and marketing, R&D, G&A, with lots of different rows of different hierarchies in your organization. So that's the hiring, and what it throws out is things like this. So here's a break-even analysis for you of the business. Obviously key for an entrepreneur, right? When is the moment that we actually start making money? And a lot of students cut and paste this chart straight into their presentations, right? And it tells you when you break even, how many units you have to sell to get break even, how much monthly revenue you need to get break even. It produces the standard pro forma financial statements, income statement, balance sheet. I'm not going to go into those. This was the tab where my MBA student, I think, threw in every possible graph she could possibly think of. So, but this is the one I use a lot. Key metrics. So when I'm looking at entrepreneurs' revenue models, I look at the key metrics. You know, so for instance, how many employees do they have? Does that seem reasonable? What is revenue? This is obviously a great company, 101 million in 5 years. How much do they actually make? And how many, if it's subscription, how many subscription contracts do they have? But how many current subscriptions? So this was kind of hard to do, but we cracked this recently. So this actually is accounting for churn. So as people discontinue their revenue, discontinue their subscription, sorry, this is actually doing that. And then this is the one I look for a lot, because this turns red or green depending on whether you got positive cash or negative cash. And this is where I get to tell the students, you've got to have cash in the company. All right, so that's my time up. I hope you will use it. I feel like it's a magic bullet. And go and use it in class and let me know any comments and things afterwards.
I'd love to see it. This is great. You know, I love how this ties in because we had Clinton speak of autonomy and this sort of learn by doing, right? And so Ian's model is just fascinating to me, especially somewhat of a financial background. I love how you've simplified this, and it just like the different components of the financial model make sense, and it really helps bring this sort of realistic perspective for students, you know, and what I always share is like, you know, take the romance out of your idea and let's grow some leg on it, right? Like, how does it have some legs to stand on? So I love this model. Next, we have a couple guests from Loyola Marymount University. We have we have Jose, who is a director of an entrepreneurship center, and Jason, who is a professor of entrepreneurship. I'm fascinated to hear about their approach because they'll be sharing with us how the university really engages with the community. And if you're familiar with Loyola and the sort of landscape of LA, to the east of the university are some of the poorest communities, urban communities in LA. So I love how the university will be sharing with us how they engage. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks everybody for attending. My name is Jason DeMello, and I am grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you today about our work. Here's a little bit of my background. I need to get a new headshot because I got a little more gray in my beard now. But today, you know, I came down here. I'm supposed to be in class right now. I'm actually skipping my own class to talk to you. I'm taking some students to Europe this summer, and we're having our kickoff thing. But I actually had a chance to attend the first conference back in 2015. So this conference is very special to me. And when I was invited to speak this year, I had to make the trip down. And what I'm going to talk about today is related to an idea that came out of that first conference, actually. So it's kind of a full circle. And we were in a workshop, and we had to come up with creative ideas for how we can teach entrepreneurship better, right? Be more innovative and different. And one of the ideas that struck me that day, back in 2015, was having my students go out and teach in the community. And this idea of teaching to learn, because when you teach, you learn something twice, right? And it also has a positive impact because many of the youth in our community don't have the privilege to come to a school like LMU and take a class in entrepreneurship. In fact, I never took a class in entrepreneurship until I was in my 20s. I never even used the word entrepreneur until I was in my 20s, to be honest. And I did everything entrepreneurial that you can imagine. So I went back to LA after the conference, and we started doing this with a local school, and I had my class go out and help 8th graders with their businesses, and we hosted a showcase, and we run a financial literacy program, and I've done many other programs to help kids. The summer's full of camps and other one-day events, and we've got another one of our wonderful members that works in the community, Andrew here from LMU, who does a lot of our work. And so, you know, we've done this now for many years, and as a professor, I actually see myself more as a producer. I'm a music producer, but, you know, my role in the classroom and my role in the studio is to bring out the best in people and to see their potential. Right? Because a lot of people don't see it in themselves. And that's the approach that I take to learning. And the other side of being a producer is creating an environment where people can thrive. Okay, and that might be a really high-end studio with the best equipment, or it might be a dark little room where somebody feels safe to give a performance. And in education, we have to think about that. You know, the environment is not always our classroom. It might be other people's classrooms. It might be a corporation, a headquarters in one of the neighboring companies. So that's kind of the role I've taken. I run our incubator. We're having a showcase on Wednesday, so please come to LA and visit us if you're around. And I want to kind of build on what we heard this morning from Mike Morris. You know, he talked about community, and he talked about disadvantaged communities. And I wish he was here. I'd like to challenge that term disadvantage, because I don't agree with that. And our talk today is about maybe thinking about that as disconnected rather than disadvantaged. And so that's not my original idea, because as a professor, I'm also trying to learn from my students. And so I want to introduce Jose. Jose was a student, and now he works in our entrepreneurship center. He's got a remarkable background. So he grew up in South Central LA. He attended NFTE, learned entrepreneurship at a young age, came to LMU. He was a leader on campus. He ran our entrepreneurship society. He has since built youth programs. He brought Snapchat into the communities, working with kids that aren't usually in the tech space. He is a reserve deputy in the sheriff department, so he not only does he do educational work in the community, but he is in law enforcement, and he can probably beat me up. And he's come back, and we recruited him to come and run our entrepreneurship center and do all our co-curricular stuff. And I've asked him, when we were invited, I thought this would be a great talk because he's speaking firsthand, and I think as entrepreneurship professors, we should practice what we preach. And we're always telling our students to get out of the building, listen to our customers, right? And build empathy and really understand the context of the problems we're trying to solve. And I think Jose has got some of the best insight on that, and so he's going to share that with you now. So let's give a warm welcome to Jose Garcia.
Too nice. I just answer emails. Thank you so much. My name is Jose Garcia again. I'm the assistant director at the Center for Entrepreneurship at LMU. Like Jason mentioned, I grew up in South Central. It's a great community, lots of fun, very dangerous, but you meet a lot of great people. In my experience, some of the most entrepreneurial people that I've ever met came from that community. To paint you a picture, starting in my house, both of my grandmas were hustlers. My grandma, my mom, and I were always street vending, going to parks. One time got caught in the middle of a shooting between Bloods and Crips and had to take cover behind a palm tree. And I don't think it gets any more LA than that. My grandma from my dad's side was living in a convalescent home, would burn CDs or DVDs and sell bootlegs to the other residents in the community. And that mentality trickled down to all of us. Growing up, I saw entrepreneurs from ice cream trucks who were coming out all times of the day. Tamal lady who was selling tamales and champurrado from a shopping cart in the morning. A bread van, a pizza SUV, another tamal and champurrado sedan at night. People were constantly selling in the neighborhood, and we were all living that Tupac mentality, which is trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, right? We were always trying to stretch the little that we had to get just a little bit more and hopefully live a better life. However, I never knew what an entrepreneur was. I didn't know that was entrepreneurship. To me, that was just survival. I always thought working in business meant wearing a black suit, a white shirt, and a black tie in a boring cubicle until I died. And I thought, I'm never going into business. That seems terrible. Who would want to do that? It wasn't until I participated in this high school program where I was asked, what's something that you're good at? Make a product, create a business, and address a problem in your community that you're passionate about. Through there, I got a mentor who had a really cool office by the beach, had all these young entrepreneurial people working for him, working on a company that helped people from Africa to South America, all over the world. And during their lunch breaks, they got to go to the beach and hang out and tan and skate, and I thought I'd love to do that. I'd love to work for a startup. I couldn't imagine anything more fun, and you get to make a lot of money, potentially. At the time, they didn't tell us that it was a very low chance of making a lot of money, but it seemed like a great idea. So I went the startup route, worked for various startups, worked with accelerators, graduated, went into marketing strategy, and I started going to all these LA Tech events. And you had people from all over the country, all over the world saying, we are LA Tech, this is our community. And I was looking around and I wasn't seeing the most entrepreneurial people that I had ever known in my life, which were the people from my community. The people that practice entrepreneurship on a daily basis. Not because it was cool, because they wanted to be in Forbes and 30 under 30, because they wanted to be TikTok famous, but because they wanted to survive. So I decided to leave my tech job, start working with a nonprofit, and for my first project, Snapchat funded a design academy for 20 community college low-income students. In this program, we brought in students who didn't have computers or who didn't have experience with certain softwares, didn't have a bachelor's degree. We trained them for about 2 months. We hired a professor to lead the academics. We provided them with the tools. Hundreds of employees participated as mentors, as guest speakers, anywhere from the most junior person to Evan Spiegel, who eventually funded 2 full-ride scholarships for 2 of these students to study at the Royal College of Arts, the top design school in the world. Since then, it was such a great success. We had their showcase. For the first time, students felt that they could make an impact with their skills, because for their final project, we wanted to bring out that entrepreneurial spirit in all of them. We asked them to use the new design skills that they use in this program to create an app or a feature that would solve an issue in their community. For the first time, these students felt empowered to use their skill set to make a difference, to potentially go into a career where they can make a lot of money. A lot of them brought their parents to this event, where for the first time, their parents knew that they weren't wasting time. They were actually working on their computer. They weren't just scrolling the internet. Many of them felt supported for the first time and inspired. Since then, many of them have gone on to work in various tech jobs. Some of them make a lot more money than I do, which is great, and I'm happy for them. But since then, we expanded it to a marketing academy, a software engineering academy, an augmented reality academy. We partnered with Microsoft, with Fika Ventures, to launch many academies. And what I noticed in these programs was when you bring together the resources offered by the company and the academic expertise that you all offer while enhancing or while embracing the entrepreneurial spirit in these students, you can make a truly significant impact in these communities. Because this isn't just one internship for one student. It's one student going into an internship, going into a full-time job, making $100,000+, which is a significant change in their family lifestyle, make a significant difference in generations. Since then, I was inspired by what impact one professor can have on one of these academies. And I started to think, well, what can an entire center do for a community? Not just one professor, but an entire center. And that's part of what inspired me to come back to LMU, to see what impact can be made in entrepreneurial education at an actual institution. And I wanted to share a little bit about this to hopefully inspire some of you all to think of creative ways to reach these communities. To talk about some of the amazing work that's already being done, I want to pass it back to Jason, who has plenty of experience with this. Thank you.
So we're very lucky to have brought Jose back to LMU. I can't tell you how proud it makes me to see him and see the work that he did after graduating, and then the opportunities that we have, because we're just starting really. Like the last 10 years, we've done some really cool things around financial literacy. We have a program called the Save It Forward Initiative, where we hire LMU students, we pay them, and then we do it this summer, and then they go out and they mentor and teach kids in the community. And it's better they are teaching them than me, because a 16-year-old doesn't really care that much about saving, right? And budgeting and credit scores and all these kind of things. But when they find out that an 18 and 19-year-old their lives are being affected by it, and they can share stories and real instances, it matters. So this near-peer mentoring thing is powerful. We've seen it work. It's great for our students. They develop leadership skills, right? We make it fun. We make it something that is gamified and not like school. We've had other students, similar to Jose, have gone out and done their own mentoring programs and working with other corporations, and we really think that universities can be the central hub. And I want to challenge you all. We'll talk in the Q&A. Think about your community. Think about the youth in your community and what you can do as a university. Besides offering classes and camps, what else can you do? Because we have a powerful alumni base. We've got students that are eager, and they're actually some of the best teachers that you'll find. And you bring those two together with businesses and corporations with resources, and then you can make an amazing difference. So that's our presentation. Thank you for your attention, and hand it back.
Yeah. Wow. What great presenters. I mean, first of all, we started off with this whole autonomy, right? That you get to take control of your learning, learn by doing, right? And obviously having some financial model here that we can certainly put some realities to our ideas.
Oh, it's okay.
More than anything, how do we engage others, right? And how do we mentor and become a valuable resource? So at this moment in time, we have enough, we have time for questions. So I'd love to open it up for questions for our speakers.
Thank you very much. Yes, they all were very good. Regarding the revenue model, and I realize that's just a title, but if I understand it correctly, it's more than just revenue. It's the profitability model.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. No, I just understood. And then how about with the price? What are your thoughts on that? What do you tell the students with that? Do you tell them to do it via the model, or do you tell them to find out what the client really wants to pay, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, right, yes, good question. So everything should be about what they've learned in their customer discovery interviews and their testing to go into the model. So yes, it's a model that does profitability obviously as well. But obviously I think pricing is the hardest thing, right, for all of us to do. Even when I'm mentoring experienced entrepreneurs, it's hard. So, but it leads to an educational opportunity just to talk about how do you set pricing? Is it driven by competition? Is it driven by willingness to pay? Is it driven by the value you're producing with the customer? So each of those, as we go through the model, each of it's kind of an educational opportunity. Well, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, it's not just revenue.
Next question.
Just a quick comment. You mentioned you're not quite sure about what to refer to these communities as. I was in North Carolina yesterday, and we have a lot of historical black colleges there, and we had a session about labels and things like that. And these are all deans of business schools from these historical black colleges. They prefer the term under-resourced. That's what they want, because all the other ones, if you have disadvantaged and these type of words in it, it kind of implies certain things about that particular community. And what they see is the problem is not entrepreneurial spirit, I mean, as you pointed out, but the fact that they're missing resources. Now, those resources may be more than financial. They could be networking and things like that, but that's at least what I'm hearing from kind of the eastern part of the United States and the historical black community, that they would like to have their community involved.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that, right? And we deliberately use disconnected because one of the best resources universities have are to connect those dots.
I was going to say the under-resourced is actually the education. And a lot of education, like my school, came about because of the Watts riots, because they didn't have any educational opportunities in South LA. And so Cal State Dominguez came out of that. I'm curious with the what you're doing at LMU, which I love, because you're bringing former students back and getting back into the community. What better way to build a community? And I applaud you for doing that. That's awesome. It's more of a comment than a question. And then Clint, got to ask you on your guides, man. You got new revisions coming out?
I got a second one called Lean Entrepreneurship
I used that one.
Guide, and it has all 14 of the evidence-based methods in one place. I think it's the only one that has that. But the interesting thing is instructors up at Belmont and somewhere else have actually taken 2 or 3 of them together as they plan a startup. So they'll use a lean launch to do the beginning, and then they'll switch to discipline entrepreneurship for the TAM marketing, and it's been more effective.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, entrepreneurship is evolving, right?
It is.
And the value and so forth. So, yeah.
So
Keep going. Those are great guides.
Thank you.
Great, excellent questions and comments. Any others?
I don't need
Other thoughts, questions, comments? Anyone have a dad joke? Dad joke or comment?
Thank you. Actually, I have a question for each one of you. Just going to challenge you a little bit. No, just kidding. The first gentleman, thank you all very much. Should we implement motivation activities in our entrepreneurship courses, and where can we find resources to assist students? Because I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, the answer is yes. You want to institute any form of motivation you can, because it'll make the product more successful. But the answer is I would refer you to the book by Daniel Pink, Drive. You'll get some ideas out of it. But essentially, you want to empower the students and make the teams self-reliant and stand alone, that they can just create on their own and mentor and massage them so that they continue to advance. And in the process, they learn by doing it at a far faster rate than they would if they were sitting there, taking down lecture notes. It's just a magical experience. No, I would just say, increase the activities.
Thank you. Can I have that card now?
Oh, yes.
All right. That's a joke right there. And the next gentleman, and he kind of answered some of the, because I like the model. Right. I just kind of felt like it may be a little too advanced. Is there a way, should I, because I'm trying to think how I can implement it. Yeah. Because in one of my classes, like the financial statements, balance sheet, and then I was like, I wonder if this would be too much or what. So what is your experience, I guess, for undergraduate students with that model, with limited experience?
So I think the comment I get most often is that this is too much and too advanced. But my response back is, all it's asking you for is the things that you need to know, like how many products are you going to sell, at what price, how many people do you need, and so if you don't know the answer to those questions, what does a simpler model look like? The one that doesn't ask you to tell you how many products you're going to sell? I mean, I understand and I get that comment. But you know what I say to students, or to maybe more to entrepreneurs, is without a model, how do you know that this is a business worth you spending the next 3 years on? Like, do you know that this thing is got any chance of making any money and supporting you and your, you know, why are you going to do it if you don't have a model? And then they say, I'm going to raise some money. And I'm like, oh yeah, how much do you want to raise? 2 million. I'm like, why 2 million? They go, well, sounds like the right number. I'm like, if you don't have a model, right, you don't know how much money you need to raise. And by the way, without a model, you've got no chance of raising money anyway. But I do understand your point, but I think if you could just say to the students, you know, focus on the things. If you think about any business, you need to know how much you make the product for, how much you sell it for, and how many you're going to sell, and how many people are going to help you make that happen. And that's really what the model's asking you for.
No, thank you, and I'm going to steal it too, so thank you.
You're welcome to it.
I would just like to add a comment on that. Is I'm giving a class next month in Florida on how to grow a small business, and one of the things I'm using is the business model canvas. And what you do in the second stage of the growth is you do a separate sheet, a worksheet, with the tasks in each of the blocks of the model, including revenue, and then you put the deadline and priority, the task, deadlines and prioritize the task. But essentially, this would be very useful if you're working on the revenue section of the VMC for growth.
Yeah.
At that stage, it would be invaluable.
All right, excellent.
Just another quick comment about, you know, I teach the entrepreneurial finance class, and without question, I have a pro forma requirement, and it's, you know, without question, the students at the very end say that's the most valuable thing they've gotten in the whole entrepreneurship program, is being able to be forced to take a case. Now, I use a case that I've written, but they have to build that case into a pro forma. And one of the most important things I think that, you know, that they point out and I point out is that once you have a good model built, you can do simulations on it.
Absolutely.
You know, and the simulations become very important, because when you're asking about, do I need $2 million, don't put any investment in there and see where your cash flow goes negative.
Exactly.
And that's how much money you need. So it's an extremely powerful, you know,
exactly. And
model for that.
And what I think, you know, on the pro forma side, the way that we can structure this is pro formas are an output of the data, right? You enter all the data and then it outputs the pro forma. And so that's made me a lot happier teaching this, because I feel like I'm teaching the right things now, rather than teaching them, you know, how to do a balance sheet. I think balance sheet should be an output of the important things, like how many are you going to sell, right?
You have a third question.
We have a third question.
Yeah.
I had one favorite one, so I didn't want to leave you guys out. I'm glad you guys are in Los Angeles. You said something about the business incubator. That's something I want to implement on my campus. Is that once a month you have that program for the students? Because I definitely want to come by.
Yeah, come by Wednesday. I'll give you an invite for Wednesday. We do it once a semester. We have a public event. We invite the community to come. The students meet. It's a class, so they meet once a week, and they're working in a lab kind of setting, and at the end of the semester, they give a presentation. Yeah, I'll talk to you about it.
All right. Well, again, one more round of applause for our panelists today, which is great.